Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Sri Paramahansa Parivajikchaya Status Shishnadas Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Shri Shri Lalita Vishaka Radha Madhava Ki Shishi Gornitai Ki Sankirtan Yagya Ki Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Gopremanande. All glories to the Sama devotees, all glories to the Sama devotees, all glories to the Sama devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So today we are going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 4, Chapter 30, the activities of the Prachetas, text 37. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tesham Vicharatam Padbhyam Tirtanam Pavanechaya Bitasya Kim Na Rocheta Tavakanam Samagama Tesham Vicharatam Padbhyam Tirtanam Pavanechaya Bitasya Kim Narocheta Tavakanam Samagama Tesham Vicharatam Padbhyam Tirtanam Pavanechaya Bitasya Kim Narocheta Tavakanam Samagama. Tesham, of them, Vicharatam, who travel, Padbhyam, by their feet, Tirthanam, the holy places, Pavana Ichaya, with a desire to purify, Bhitasya, to the materialistic person who is always fearful. Kim, why? Na, not. Rocheta, becomes pleasing. Tavakanam, of your devotees. Samagama, meeting. In translation, dear Lord, your personal associates, devotees, wander all over the world to purify even the holy places of pilgrimage. Is not such activity pleasing to those who are actually afraid of material existence? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are two kinds of devotees. One is called Goshtyanandi and the other Bhajana Anandi. The word Bhajana Anandi refers to the devotee who does not move but remains in one place. Such a devotee is always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. He chants the Mahamantra as taught by many acharyas, and sometimes goes out for preaching work. The Goshtyanandi is one who desires to increase the number of devotees all over the world. He travels all over the world just to purify the world and the people residing in it. Caitanya Mahaprabhu advised, Pridivite Achayata Nagaradi Gram Sarvatra Prachala Harbe Mola Nam. This is from Chaitanya Bhagavat Antyakanda, chapter 4, verse 126. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted his followers to move all over the world to preach in every town and village. In the Chaitanya Sampradaya, those who strictly follow the principles of Lord Chaitanya must travel all over the world to preach the message of Lord Chaitanya, which is the same as preaching the words of Krishna, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The more the devotees preach the principles of Krishna Katha, the more people throughout the world will benefit. Devotees like the great sage Narada, who travel all over to preach, are called Goshtyanandi. Narada Muni is always wandering throughout the universe just to create different types of devotees. Narada even made a hunter a devotee. He also made Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad devotees. Actually, all devotees are indebted to the great sage Narada, for he has wandered both in heaven and in hell. A devotee of the Lord is not even afraid of hell. He goes to preach the glories of the Lord everywhere, even in hell, because there is no distinction between heaven and hell for a devotee. Narayana parasarve, nakutasjana bibyati, Swarga Pavaraga Nalakesh Vapitulyata Darshina. A pure devotee of Narayan is never afraid of going anywhere and everywhere. For him, heaven and hell are one and the same. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, chapter 17, verse 28. Such devotees wandering all over the world deliver those who are actually afraid of this material existence. Some people are already disgusted with material existence, being confused and frustrated by material enjoyment. And some people who are intelligent are interested in understanding the Supreme Lord. Both may take advantage of the pure devotee who wanders throughout the world. When a pure devotee goes to a place of pilgrimage, he desires to purify that holy place of pilgrimage. Many sinful men bathe in the holy waters of the places of pilgrimage. They take their baths in the waters of the Ganges and Yamuna at places such as Prayag, Vrindavan, and Mathura. In this way, the sinful men are purified, but their sinful actions and reactions remain at the holy places of pilgrimage. When a devotee comes to take his bath at those places of pilgrimage, the sinful reactions left by the sinful men are neutralized by the devotee. Tirti kurvanti tirtani swantastena gadabrita. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:13-10. Because the devotee always carries the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, wherever he goes becomes a place of pilgrimage, a holy place for understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is therefore the duty of everyone to associate with a pure devotee and thus attain freedom from material contamination. Everyone should take advantage of the wandering devotees whose only business is to deliver conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. Let us read the verse again. Tesham vicharatam padbhyam tirthanam pavanechaya bitasya kim narocheta tavakanam samagama. Dear Lord, your personal associates, devotees, wander all over the world to purify even the holy places of pilgrimage. Is not such activity pleasing to those who are actually afraid of material existence? Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dejatarne Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakapatrobhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. So there's another wonderful verse and wonderful purport, very amazing purport by Srila Prabhupada, that there are different types of devotees here. Of course, two types are mentioned, but there are many types, and you could say, of devotees. With different characteristics and on different levels, different programs, different understandings, different capacities, and different potencies. It's said that a Kanishta Adhikari means a beginning level devotee or materialistic devotee can or may or can keep himself Krishna conscious. Maybe. Anyway, it's possible. Keep himself Krishna conscious. Whereas it is said then that a madhyam adhikari, middle-level devotee, means a serious practitioner, you could say, very serious, trying to progress in Krishna consciousness. A madhyamadhikari can make other people Krishna conscious, not only himself, but can make others, and maybe many others, Krishna conscious. But an Uttama Adhikari, highest level devotee, pure devotee, of course this term pure devotee, it can be taken in different ways. But certainly that devotee is absolutely a pure devotee. Such a devotee, Uttama Adhikari, can make the whole world Krishna conscious. The whole world. And we see this with Srila Prabhupada. Let me tell you one little story, interesting little story, from Russia. Perhaps none of you have been to Russia, I don't know, but yeah, anyway, Russia, it's a very different place. Haribol. It's so different. So one time, one devotee, it was actually Indradyumna Swami, if you know of him. He was coming from Moscow right out into Siberia, kind of the eastern part of Russia, to attend a festival. And the plane flew overnight and landed the next morning, but there was fog. There was fog, and the plane couldn't land. It had to go to another city, not far away, but another place, and stop and wait, and then go to where they're meant to go. So everyone's waiting in the airport, and Indradyumna Maharaj is there with his translator. And there was one old man from the communist time. Yeah, this old man was sweeping the airport. And that particular area, there's a large Buddhist population. There's a large Buddhist population in that particular area. And this elderly, means like 65, 70 years old, elderly Russian man from the communist times walked up to Indradyumna Maharaj and asked him in Russian, "Who are you? What are you? Are you Buddhist?" And Indradyumna Maharaj replied through the translator, "No, I'm Hare Krishna." And the man said, "Oh, Hare Krishna." And, remember, this is way out. Probably there, they have never seen an Indian person, anyone, in their lives. And just a totally different part of the world. So the man said, "Yeah, oh, Hare Krishna, And Maharaj asked him, "Have you heard of Hare Krishna?" And the man took a little step back like, "What?" and said, have I heard of Hare Krishna? Of course I've heard of Hare Krishna. You think I'm stupid? So you see, in this place, which is very remote, geographically, what to speak of culturally or spiritually, but they've heard of her. Even some elderly man from the communist time has heard of Hare Krishna. So an Uttama Adhikari can make the whole world Krishna conscious. So there's big difference. Big difference. So now here of course, the devotees who are being talked about, they are Goshtyanandis, they are preachers. So they are at least Madhyama Adhikaris. And they may be more, they may be Uttama Adhikaris. You know, Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada, they give descriptions of the Madhyama Adhikaris, Uttama Adhikaris. Madhyama Adhikaris, they recognize 4 categories of people. They recognize Krishna and they worship him. He's a category of person. They recognize the devotees and befriend them. And they recognize the innocent materialists, and they try to preach to them and help them. And they recognize the demons, the atheists particularly, and they avoid them. So Madhyama Adhikari generally is very actively involved in preaching, giving Krishna consciousness to those innocent people, and also associating with the devotees and so on. But the description, sort of classic description of the Uttama Adhikaris, is that they don't preach. They just stay in some place, maybe a holy place, usually a holy place, but some place, and they just chant and just relish remembering the Lord and his pastimes. And in many cases, they think that I'm not an advanced devotee. I'm basically not really a devotee at all. So, but they see everybody else as if they are devotees, and as if they are nicely situated in Krishna consciousness. Even the non-devotees, they may see them like that actually these non-devotees are better than me. And they think that I can't preach. How could I preach? You know, I'm not a devotee, or I'm hardly a devotee. I'm struggling to become a devotee. How could I preach? And them, the people, they don't need to be preached to. And even if they did, I couldn't do it. These are some elements in the sort of the makeup of the Uttama Adhikari in the classic type of case. But then, and we know Prabhupada's talked about this quite a bit, sometimes the Uttama Adhikaris come down, so to speak, to the level of Madhyama Adhikari to preach. Why would they do that? Because, as in the case of Srila Prabhupada, they're ordered by the spiritual master. If that order is not there, generally they wouldn't do it. But in some cases, and Prabhupada is such a case, he was ordered, so he did it. And then they sort of manifest the mentality, the consciousness of a Madhyama Adhikari. They worship Krishna, associate with the devotees, preach to the innocent, and avoid the staunch non-devotees. But that doesn't mean that they have actually come down. And now they're on a lower level, and so their position in Krishna consciousness is is actually less than what it was. No, they've just adopted, sort of externally really, adopted certain of the attitudes and activities of the Madhyamadikaris. So when they do that, like Prabhupada, when they do that, the impact they have is just phenomenal. It's just amazing, actually, how they can affect people, and how they do affect people. So anyway, one way or the other, whether we're talking about Uttama Adhikaris who are acting like Madhyama Adhikaris or actual Madhyama Adhikaris, but many devotees, it is like a standard program for devotees, particularly in Kali Yuga. Many devotees travel around and they give people Krishna consciousness. And this is like Shri Shri Lalita Vishaka Radha Madhava Nitai Gora Sundar Shri Janaki Janaki Vallabh Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai. And this is like a standard program. Sometimes devotees ask us, like sannyasis particularly, how, if someone is a brahmachari, how can I remain a brahmachari and not get entangled in household existence? Which is a good question and important question. And one answer that we give, and it's a very good answer, is preach. Preach. And learn how to preach. And don't just sort of preach like a parrot, although that's better than not preaching, but learn how to present Krishna consciousness. Learn how to understand people and understand how to preach to different people, because different people require different types of preaching. They really do. So, it's like, not just almost, it is a science how to become a qualified preacher. And when you do, or as you're progressing like that, then it becomes more and more satisfying and inspiring. And ultimately it just becomes amazing. Such a wonderful way of life. Yeah. So this is what's being discussed here. Devotees traveling around and preaching. And like we've said, the more advanced the devotee, the more effective will the preaching be. But even if someone is not advanced, and they try in as sincere a way as they're capable, it will have some beneficial effect. It may not be great, but it will be some beneficial effect for the audience and the person who speaks. Let me tell you an interesting little story. Maybe you should fasten your seatbelts for this. It's a bit of an interesting story. We were in Bhaktivedanta Manor. I joined in London before we had Bhaktivedanta Manor. Anyway, later I was in Bhaktivedanta Manor, and one day, one young man just arrived at Bhaktivedanta Manor with his suitcase. Here I am. I'm joining. Oh, okay. So, what inspired you to join? Did you get a book? No. Did you meet devotees? No. Then why? What has inspired you to come to join the temple? And this young man said he was in what they call in England a pub. Do you know what a pub is? It's sort of a formal version of, what do they call it? Deshi. What do they call a place where you buy local? Deshi take a sharab. Deshi take a sharab. Or Angrezi sharab. You know, I can read the Devanagari, so I see these things. So anyway, yeah, he had been in a pub, a public drinking house, drinking beer. And another young man walked in and just sat down next to him. They'd never seen each other before, and started drinking beer. And they started talking. And somehow they started talking about religion. And the other young man who had just walked in said, yeah, okay, religion, you know, this and that, but the best is Hare Krishna. The best is Hare Krishna, as they're drinking beer together. Seriously. And the other young man, who's the one who is now, he's just arrived in the temple, he said, really? Hare Krishna? Oh, why do you say that? And so the other young man started to preach to him. And he told him, yeah, it's the best. He said, I used to live in the temple, but it was too much for me. I couldn't do it. So I moved out, and now I'm doing all sorts of things. But still, I know Hare Krishna is the best. So he spoke to that other young man and convinced him. And now here's the young man with his suitcase, and he became a devotee, and he's still a devotee. So, what to speak of Kanishta, the other young man who had lived in the temple before. Maybe he is something like pre-Kanishta, if you understand. He may become a Kanishta, perhaps. But somehow, he had been influenced by the devotees when he stayed in the temple, ultimately by Prabhupada, and somehow he was carrying it, and he was able to influence that other person. So it's just an interesting thing. But obviously, an Uttama will have the greatest potency by far, just by far. But a Kanishta, a Madhyam, may have considerable potency also. They may have very great potency and be able to deeply affect many people. So therefore the devotees, and we can take it, like in some of these verses, like the verse we read yesterday, there was it was talking about the pure devotee. And some of the other verses also, they're talking about the pure devotees. We said that this term pure devotee, it can be applied and is applied in different ways sometimes. Like even there's a place in Caitanya Charitamrita. It is in the section dealing with the inhabitants of Kulina Gram, questioning Lord Caitanya. How do we recognize a devotee? They came, each year they came for 3 years in a row. and asked Lord Caitanya the same question: how can we recognize a devotee? Who's a devotee? And Lord Caitanya answered differently each time. First time he answered, who's a devotee? And he described a Kanishta Adhikari, or even pre-Kanishta. He said, anyone who has chanted the name of Krishna one time. In Hindi, do you say ek bar, or is that Bengali? Ek bar is the best amongst the common men, which is an interesting way to put it. Best amongst the common men means he's kind of amongst the common men, actually. He's not, really like situated as a devotee. Anyway, next year, how do we recognize a devotee? Anyone who is chanting Hare Krishna is the best of the devotees. This is Madhyamadikari. And the third year, anyone who, when people see him, they spontaneously chant Hare Krishna is the best of the devotees. So anyway, in the discussion there about the Kanishta, Srila Prabhupada gives a description of how a Kanishta Adhikari may be a pure devotee. It depends on the seriousness. But certain Kanishtas, if they're serious enough, they can be considered pure devotees. So anyway, like we said, this term pure devotee, there's some flexibility. But the sort of, in English we would say, bottom line or sort of most basic point is that anyone who is a devotee, and particularly those who are at least trying to become serious or to be or become serious, they're special people. And their association is valuable, beneficial. Even they may not be on some high level, even if they're on a relatively low level, but still, if they're a little serious, their association is auspicious, beneficial, they are auspicious. Let me tell you another little story. I don't know if you've read the book, very nice book, Srila Prabhupada in Germany. There's a book, one of these biographical books, Prabhupada in Germany. And it describes Prabhupada's first visit to Germany. It was, actually I'm not even sure, but maybe 68, probably 69. Prabhupada went to Germany. One devotee, American, had gone to Germany. His name was Krishna Das, initiated name. He's still a devotee. So Krishna Das decided to go to Germany to preach because, he'd heard Prabhupada talking about these things and he thought, right, let me do it. There were a couple of problems. One was he spoke no German. Nothing. Shunya. If you think my Hindi is bad, at least we can speak something. But he could speak nothing. Nothing. And the other problem was he was 18 years old. Just a young fellow. Anyone here 18 or less? See, you're all old. Purani. He he was 18. Third problem, he had been a devotee maybe 1 to 2 years. So, he didn't know much, wasn't experienced really, hardly at all. But he had that determination. He went there and he rented a shop actually. And there he was, trying to do something. So Srila Prabhupada went and stayed with him, and this is described in that book, Prabhupada in Germany. Prabhupada's first visit to Germany, first visit to Europe. So, there they were. Prabhupada was there, I think, for about a week or so. Just the two of them. Can you imagine being alone with Srila Prabhupada for 1 week? Even that's just sort of mind-boggling, really. But one of the days during that week or so was Ekadasi. And Srila Prabhupada that day decided to chant japa. So from early morning till around midday, Prabhupada was sitting in the little temple room just chanting japa on his beads. Then around midday, Srila Prabhupada stopped and he came out into the back. There's a room or two in the back of the shop where they were living. And Srila Prabhupada, in a very humble, gentle mood, came up to Krishna Das and said, Krishna Das, will you pray to Krishna for me? To help me, in other words. And Krishna Das became bewildered. Like, me pray to Krishna to help you? It must be the other way around. But this is what Prabhupada said, will you pray to Krishna for me? And Krishna Das didn't know what to say, but he said, Prabhupada, I don't think it will work. He said, I don't think Krishna will listen to me. And Srila Prabhupada, again in the same very humble, gentle mood, Prabhupada said, no. Krishna will hear you. You're a devotee. Krishna will hear you. So, it's a very nice example that some great Vaishnav, greatest, is taking it, that even, a very neophyte, very, lacking in knowledge, lacking in experience, etc., devotee can actually help him and can actually sort of mediate between him and Krishna, so to speak. So this is one point. We've been talking about the devotees, sadhu sangha, satsanga, association with the devotees, pure devotees, the last week or so. And of course it applies most to the most elevated devotees, obviously. But actually it applies to all. It actually applies to all. Therefore, we should be very careful not to underestimate devotees. One time we were sitting there, Srila Prabhupada was giving class in Bhaktivedanta Manor. And Prabhupada was making this basically same point. Don't underestimate the devotees, don't offend the devotees, even if the devotee is not very advanced, even if he's junior, be respectful, be nice. And Srila Prabhupada said, because you don't know who that devotee may be. You don't know. And Prabhupada said, you, meaning us, sitting listening to the class, you may be sitting next to Narada Muni, like now. You may be sitting next to Narada Muni. Everybody turned and looked at who they were sitting next to. So, I suspect Narada Muni was not there, although maybe he was. Because another time, you may know, Prabhupada was in, I think, New York or somewhere in America, in the very, very early days. And the devotees arranged a program, public program, like a hall program. But they didn't know, it was a Saturday night. They didn't know the same night, just up the road, was a big rock concert, with all the big musicians, and so all the young people went there, and literally no one came to Prabhupada's program. And the devotees apologized to Prabhupada. Prabhupada did the program just with the devotees, and the devotees apologized to Prabhupada. They were so sorry that no one came. And Srila Prabhupada said, what do you mean no one came? Didn't you see Narada Muni? Didn't you see Lord Brahma? Yeah. So we have to take all devotees seriously. Of course, the more advanced, the more seriously, but we have to take all devotees very seriously and try and please the devotees, serve the devotees appropriately. Different devotees are on different levels, so you serve them in different ways. If they're senior, then you inquire, try to learn from them, and you render menial service. If they're more or less on the same level, means maybe they've been initiated as long as you, or they've been practicing as long as you, or roughly, approximately something like that, then you befriend them. Doesn't mean you just sit down and just start talking about life, but you befriend them in Krishna consciousness. And those who are junior, then you serve them by helping them, particularly by preaching to them nicely in sympathetic, empathetic ways, and really trying to help them. So like this, we associate with different levels of devotees in relation to our own level in different ways. But it's all done in a mood of humility, in a mood of service, and even with those who are juniors, it's not like a mood like I'm the boss and you are just practically nobody, and I may exploit you, something like that. But the mood is one of service. This has to be the underlying theme in our relationships with other devotees, but we just serve them in different ways depending on what levels they're on. And we don't serve them in inappropriate ways. Like if someone is senior to you, don't instruct them. Don't instruct them. There's a famous story, maybe you've heard. Prabhupada was doing the deity installation in Amsterdam. It may have been, I think it was 1972, but it was something like that. And the devotees were trying to organize things, but they were making big mess. It was practically chaos. And Prabhupada was really not pleased. So towards the end of the program, they were going to do a yajna, havan, fire sacrifice. So there's the havan kund, just there. No fruit, no vegetables, just the structure was there. And the temple president came to Prabhupada and said, "We are ready for the yajna." And Srila Prabhupada said, "Where is the fruit? Where is the fruit?" The fruit. Where's the fruit? Temple president ran into the kitchen. "Where's the fruit? Prabhupada wants the fruit." The cooks in the kitchen knew that Prabhupada, when he had fruit, because they assumed he wanted fruit himself, when he had fruit, he sometimes liked a fruit salad. So they quickly chopped up the quickest fruit salad in this Kali Yuga. Within 2 minutes, they came out with this big bowl of fruit salad. The temple president came out, "Prabhupada, here's the fruit." And Prabhupada just looked at this and he didn't say anything. They say that when Prabhupada was angry, he might shout at you. But when Prabhupada was really angry, he didn't say anything. So now Prabhupada didn't say anything. He's sitting on the Vyasasan. He just looked to the side like, this is too much. There was a young hippie boy standing there with long, greasy hair and just, dirty clothes. But he had beads and he was chanting. He was a little bit of a devotee, not too much, but a little bit. And he's standing right next to Prabhupada, watching these different things happen and seeing Prabhupada become more disturbed, and finally comes the fruit salad. And Prabhupada just looked across, and the boy's standing there, and he leaned over to Prabhupada. And he said, "Prabhupada, just chant Hare Krishna. Just chant Hare Krishna." And Prabhupada looked at him like, "Who are you?" and picked up his beads and started chanting Hare Krishna. So anyway, we shouldn't instruct seniors. We have to learn how to relate with devotees appropriately. But if we do like this, it helps so much in our Krishna consciousness. It's amazing. So, yes, respecting the devotees, serving the devotees, associating with the devotees, it's such a foundational point in Krishna consciousness, holding everything together. Because ultimately, when we talk about the relationship with the spiritual master, we're just talking about devotee relationship. It's just a particular type. He's a particular type of senior. And associating with him, it's sadhu sangha. A particular type, the most important type. But it's just a type of sadhu sangha. There's, I found a few little quotations from Shastra, different places. I want to just tell you a couple before we finish. I don't know if you've read the 11th canto. How many of you have read the 11th canto? I read it. If you haven't, you should. And next time I come back, if you haven't, well, if you have, I'll give you a prize. Okay. So in the 11th canto, 19th chapter, there's a series of verses. It's 11:19. It's from about 20 to maybe 26 or 20 something. It's a whole sequence. And when you look in our 11th canto, you'll see they're all put together. What is it? Gira? Bis? Oh, no, 19. Yeah, okay. So just go down to the next screen. Okay, stop. Oops, too far. No, go up. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Go up again. And again. Oh my God. Anyway, it's verse 21. 11, 19, we want 21. In it, there it is. You see the third line in the verse in the middle of the screen. Mad Bhakta Puja Bhyadika. Means, even if you understand Hindi, you might get it, that the worship of my devotee is abhyadika. Abhyadika means the prime thing, main thing, like that. So the worship, it's a whole list of devotional activities, these verses. But this one is that my devotee, worshipping my devotee, is the main thing in Krishna consciousness. Most prominent, most important, like that. In Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami, in Anuchhed 244, he quotes that verse. He quotes that line, and he gives the following explanation. He says, by worshipping my devotees, one attains more intense love for me than by worshipping me directly. Because this is Krishna speaking, this is Uddhava Gita. Krishna is speaking. And then he paraphrases, sort of like a purport, and says that serving the devotees gives one greater love for me than trying to develop love for me. You follow? And this is it's a big point. Here's another point. This is from Caitanya Bhagavata. Unfortunately, I forgot to note the verse number, but it's there. And it's said to be from the scriptures. Siddhyo bhavati vaneti samshayo chuta sevinam nishamsayo stub tad bhakta paricharya ratatmanam. The servants of the infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead may or may not attain perfection. There is some doubt. But for the servants of the Lord's devotees, there is no doubt. Here's a verse from Hari Bhakti Vilas 4, what would you say? 307, yeah? 307? 360. When Lord Hari is angry, one's spiritual master can protect one. When one's spiritual master is angry, no one can give protection. Therefore, with all efforts, one should strive to please his spiritual master. Yeah. So, anyway, as usual, we've run out of time. But let's try and take this very seriously, really take it to heart, that association with the devotees is the foundation of our Krishna consciousness. It is how we have come to Krishna consciousness, either directly or indirectly. It is the key to our progress in devotional service. Not that other devotional activities are not important, like chanting the holy names, but it's extremely foundational. And we have to cultivate, learn how to associate with devotees. And if we can learn how, then the path back to Godhead. You know how Prabhupada said on numerous occasions, the path of Krishna consciousness is like walking along a razor's edge. You got to be super careful. But when one really becomes the servant of the devotees and relishes their association and knows how to associate, then Prabhupada said, that razor's edge, it becomes like a wide highway, and you can just dance along it very freely and happily back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Shri Goloka Vrindavan Dham Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Gaur Premanande. Bolo.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for such a nice, wonderful class. Maharaj, my question is how to know who is equal, who is junior, who is senior, like that.
Okay.
It sometimes becomes very tough.
Okay, that's a good question. I gave not just a hint, but I think it's a fairly good idea regarding those who are equal. It means approximately, more or less, roughly equal. At least one way is just to consider how long have they been devotees compared to me. It's a very simple rule of thumb. And in many cases, it will be accurate enough. The thing is, if you really want to get into it, it can become extremely complicated. And you'll end up having to sort of psychoanalyze the devotees, which is not easy, to try and understand, how is his consciousness? How much is he remembering Krishna? How much does he know? How detached or attached is he? So unless you're expert, if you're on a higher level, you can do that. You can actually do that. And, we mentioned for preachers, to really progress as a preacher, you need to be able to at least quickly get a basic understanding of who is my audience. If it's one person or if it's a group, who am I speaking to here? Because as a preacher, you want to preach in the way which is going to have the greatest impact, the most suitable way for whoever you're preaching to, be it one person or many. So, but, that's just like a very simple idea of what sort of person is this. But to really get into it, to understand, levels and levels within levels, that's complicated. So, and there's a chance of making mistakes and underestimating someone who is more advanced and things like that, and you can even commit offenses. So, as a general just approach, rule of thumb, just, simple principle, that's a way you can do it. And a lot of the time, it's going to be good enough. Yeah. Of course, those who've been devotees for longer than, quite longer than you, and who are practicing seriously, you should always take them as being senior. Those who've been devotees plus or minus as long as you, and who are practicing seriously, take them more or less as equals. And those who've been practicing for, significantly shorter period, take them as juniors, and generally that'll be good enough. Yeah. Hare Krishna.